Hey there, Groovesters. Ridgely here. Super excited to be hanging out with a cherished friend who is going to talk to you about A, how to take it to the next level, B, how to get unstuck, C, how to solve a problem, etc. Basically, how to unlock your superpowers. I can't tell you, this is going to be a treat. Buckle your seatbelt, so do all that stuff. Margaret Lynch, so happy that you're here. What a delight. Love you big time. And how are you today?
I am fabulous. I'm so happy to be here with you, Ridgely, and talking about superpowers, my favorite subject. So I can't wait to dive in.
Let's dive in. We all need to tap into those. We all need to use those to the best of our ability. So I'm just going to say, how do we do that? What's that look like? Go for it.
Yeah, let's jump in. And so when I talk about superpowers, this does go back to being sort of a nerdy child with all my nerdy brothers and sisters reading comic books, right? So I did become fascinated with superheroes and comic books and the idea of superpowers. And I became an engineer and used the superpower of the brain for many, many years, as many of us have. I'm sure a lot of you guys listening, right? We really developed this brainy superpower. So when I talk now about superpowers to my perfect customer, who are women coaches, I'm not talking about superpowers of being smart and brainy and creative. I'm talking about the superpowers that we need more of to either solve problems like, hey, Margaret, I feel stuck. So if you are feeling stuck in any way, that means what I call mysterious behaviors, where I'm procrastinating, I'm freezing, I'm holding back, I'm not doing the things, and it's making me crazy, and I don't know why I'm stuck. That is part number one. And so if you're listening and you're stuck, I want you to really listen in for, and Ridgely, you can remind me to mention, what does each of these superpowers mean when you're stuck? Or maybe you're saying, Margaret, I am crushing it, and I need an enhancement here. I need an enhancement here. And what I often hear from people in that category is, I need more passion. I need people to feel me more. I'm coming off a little too stiff. Or I need more leadership energy, leadership skills. I'm shying away from that kind of leadership energy. So whether you feel downright stuck, and this is the one space you can be like, I can admit it, or you want to take your skills to the next level for where you're going, right? The bigger thing that you want to do and the way you want people to see you, then this is for you. So I'm going to talk about the 4 superpowers, and we're going to get really woo-woo.
I love that. We like woo-woo, because at Groove Growth, the whole thing here, and we love to say this is all about making people better people and leaders better leaders. And we know, been at this a while now, we know that it's so much of it is the inner game. What's the inner game? How do we play that inner game? And how do we take our skills to the next level? So I'm super excited. And yes, just a reminder, we heard Margaret mention, it doesn't matter whether you're stuck at the moment and need to get out of stuck, or you're looking to just take the game up a whole nother level. Either way, pay very close attention, because we're going there right now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So the reason I said woo-woo is because this is an engineer's take on the chakra system. And so you may have heard about the chakras, or maybe you've never heard of the chakras, and maybe you've heard of them as like swirling energies, and what's the point of that? Well, what I have discovered, and doing this for 15 years, working with thousands of people, like this is not something I channeled in my living room. This is actually something that came from thousands of hours of working with people, success-focused people, trying to get them unstuck, and often getting stuck myself, even with using really powerful techniques like tapping or emotional freedom technique, which really does a lot of the work in getting people out of their own way, getting them out of their fears, their limiting beliefs. But when I discovered the chakras and really absorbed them through my engineer brain and through the lens of not just spiritual centers or swirling energy, which is fantastic, but what does this mean about your power, and what happens in the chakras when some chakras are blocked and the power is not flowing as it should? And that leads to power shortage. So I want you to think about, in terms of whether either you're stuck or you want to improve, that there's a power shortage happening, right? And so if you're crushing it, but when you get on camera, you look stiff, there's something about your energy that isn't coming through. Maybe your heart or your passion, or just your ability to be a little bit more fluid and easy on camera. If you're stuck, that's a classic power shortage. It's like I go to do something and I freeze and I hold back. So how do we open up? How do we unblock our superpowers? And of course, my most recent book with Hay House is actually called Unblocked. Funny, I happen to have it right here, right?
Yeah. Funny,
it's
right?
about unblocking the empowerment energy from your chakras, which really are your superpowers. So we start at chakra 1. There's 7 chakras. Okay, the upper 3 chakras are very light and spiritual, and one of them, the 6th chakra, is actually our mind state. Okay, the 7th chakra is like our connection to genius, universal consciousness, spirituality, and 5th chakra is how we speak and how we create in the world. And a lot of people focus there. They focus on meditation, affirmations, and mindset. But that doesn't work as well when you have a power shortage, because the brain is like a robot, right? Robots don't do passion. Robots don't understand courage and enthusiasm and charisma, right? It's like that does not compute. So when we look at the lower chakras, we start at the 1st chakra, which everyone in the world of chakras thinks is boring. But I want to show you what the superpower is of the 1st chakra. And so the 1st chakra is what develops, like as we're born, you're born into your 1st chakra. It's your nervous system. But the superpower that it holds is your sense of strength and resilience. And that is based on how safe do I feel? Was I raised in a way that I was constantly told, in a very grounded, practical way, you're going to be okay. You can run off and do that thing, and if you mess up, that's going to be fine. Or were you raised in a way that you were ignored or criticized or shamed? Or if you did something exciting, they said, who do you think you are? That means that at your 1st chakra, instead of it being a source of strength and resiliency, meaning, wow, I kind of messed up, and then I take a breath into myself and I'm like, what's the big deal? So 10 people saw me fail. Who cares? And this is a quality we often see in entrepreneurs, right? Where they're sort of fearless around taking risks and this idea of failure. It's like, well, what's failure anyway, right? However, I find particularly with women entrepreneurs, women coaches, women in corporate America, that 1st chakra is so much weaker because we feel that sense of danger, of attack, of criticism, of you haven't proved yourself 80,000 times enough to feel safe in taking that step and saying, I want to do that. And so the 1st chakra is really where it all starts. Now, if you're stuck, it's 100% a 1st chakra issue. It affects your other chakras, as I'll go through. But when we are stuck, I'm going to say something that no one likes to say, which is 100% of the time, this is true. 100% of the time when we are stuck, when we are procrastinating, we are, and this is a writer downer, avoiding, right? If you're procrastinating or stuck or freezing, I want you to write down the word avoiding. I'm actually avoiding doing something. 100% of the time, there is what is happening in your system exactly, is the part of the fight or flight effect. There is some part of the fight or flight going on in you, because whenever we're doing avoidant behaviors, either freezing or doing busy work, there is a fight or flight going on. And with the fight or flight effect, that also means, so we're less brilliant, we're more narrow, we're sort of stuck in the same track, and we're trying not to think about something. And underneath that, there is another layer, which is, if you really slowed down, you would feel the what I call the scary and mean self-talk layer. So if we slow down and start to really think about what is going on, like if I take this step, or the fact that I haven't taken this step, either one, what was going in our head is never kind and loving, right? It's always scary. Like, what if I fail? What if people don't like it? What if people attack me? What if I make a fool of myself? Or it's, what the hell is wrong with me? Why am I such an idiot? Why am I so stuck? Why can't I do this right? And so scary and mean self-talk comes with the fight or flight. Often we don't even know we're doing it. And this is all fear spinning in the head, spinning in our whole system, and keeping us in this sort of avoidant action. And so first chakra, there is something going on where you honestly don't feel strong and safe. And that's why you're avoiding it. And that's how the first chakra can become the most powerful of your entire system. Because what that fear does is it depresses all of your other energies. When we are afraid, enthusiasm is depressed, passion is depressed, creative thinking is depressed, anger, like, hey, I don't like this, I'm going to advocate for myself, is all depressed in our system. And because we're in that energy, we don't even realize that the self-criticism that's going on, if we actually slow down and listen to it, is that making us feel like more enthusiastic? No, that inner talk is beating us down more. And what's so interesting, originally, is when I walk, I teach coaches how to do this process with clients, or when I've done it with thousands of people, I will slow people down and let them flesh out what is going to happen if I take that step, and if I take it confidently. And there's all the fears that come up, and then all the things we say to ourselves. And when they hear themselves say it, they're like, I'll say, what do you say to yourself? What would you say about somebody that's freezing like that? And they'll say, I'm a loser, I'm an idiot, I'm a complete failure. And at first it's not an aha moment. They're like, of course I say that to myself. I'm right, it's completely true. And it takes a minute to see that, wow, that thing I'm saying to myself, doing a million things, cleaning the closets, so that I don't have to feel or realize anything that's going on in me while I avoid doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It doesn't really connect until you slow down and go, wow, this is actually depressing my charge more, right? And so that's a power shortage. So first chakra is so important. It's so powerful. Fear is at the root of all the ways we are stuck. Even if you're saying, hey, Margaret, I'm crushing it, right? And I want to be more fabulous on camera. If we spend some time, there would be a fear underneath there, a fear of vulnerability, a fear of revealing something, a fear of looking a certain way. And so there's fear underlying things. And this is where I get a little bit crazy about mindset work, because I love mindset work. It is powerful. It works. I do it. I'm in 2 masterminds, right? But you can't use mindset when it's a first chakra issue, when there's actual fear running. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I wonder if you could help me with this. This is super cool. So literally 3 days ago, I was in front of 500 business owners, 462 to be precise.
Wow.
And giving a talk for the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce. Now, I had not been, we as professional speakers, we're in front of, and coaches and mentors, and we were in front of a lot of people often, but it had been years because of the pandemic since I was in front of a group that big. And I got to tell you, I had to be in the room early for a tech check. And then I had to stay in the room as it's getting fuller and fuller and fuller, and more people are arriving, and I'm walking in the back of the room. I was surprised at how nervous I was and how I had to manage my emotional state. Like, okay, don't get too jacked up yet. Okay, you got to pick it up a little bit. You got to do this thing. I mean, I'm like, what? And then I get on stage and the clicker didn't work. I'm like, well, it was like one of these crazy moments. It went very well. We got a lot of great comments afterwards, but I couldn't believe how scared I was. That's that first chakra thing, right? My nervous system was like,
yeah. And we feel it, right? And so it's a mind-body connection, which doesn't respond well to affirmations or to think a different thought, right? And that is why I use tapping or emotional freedom technique, because that's what's clinically proven for 25 years. And, tons and tons of in journals, clinical studies, it turns off the fight or flight within minutes, right? That's actually been measured. Your cortisol drops, your adrenaline drops. And so that's such a core technique that I teach people how to use in an advanced way, because when we turn down the fear and then we start to turn down that crazy self-talk, all of a sudden we're in our body. But see, you just gave a perfect example of someone who has a really strong base of a first chakra, because that fear did not debilitate you. Right? If you had a less strong first chakra, you wouldn't even have gone. You wouldn't have even set it up. They would have said, yes, we want you to speak. And I know there's somebody out there listening who's like, I've done that. They would have said, we would love to have you speak. And then you'd say, and I never replied. As soon as they said yes, I completely disappeared, right? I hear that all the time. I'm telling you, particularly from women, right? And so they're like, I completely sabotaged myself. And so sabotage and freezing all had to do with that first chakra fear. So you were able to be in that moment and overcome it because you have this base of first chakra going, it's going to be fine to the end. People are going to love it. Right? I've done this before. I get it. You see, it's very grounded and practical in reality instead of spinning in this crazy fear, right? And so the problem with our very smart mind is that it's not going to say to you, actually, honey, there's something that feels like really at stake right now, really scary, really risky. And you want to slow down and feel that. Your mind is going to say, it's real, stop. And so we can't listen to our smart brains. It will convince you, you haven't worked hard enough. You're probably not good enough yet. People are going to criticize you. You need to prove yourself more. You're not ready yet. Your brain is going to tell you all this smart shit, and it's just crap, right? So we can't trust the mind. That's why mindset doesn't work when it's a tiny little fear. And we're just like, oh, that was a different idea. I'm good now. It means you already have a strong first chakra. Okay. So now I build on that sense of resiliency, of strength, and strength means, in general, I feel pretty safe. Like I might say, this is a risk. I might, lose face here, but what's the worst that can happen? I'll get over it, even if something devastating happens, right? I build on that to my second chakra, which is a whole different level of superpower. That is our passion, our drive, our messy tries, because we care so much, we just can't not do it, right? And so the second chakra has multiple superpowers in there, and they're opposites because it's a place of opposites and balance. And so the second chakra has what so many women need more of, which is my right to get angry and actually honor and move that impulse in me that says, hey, this doesn't feel fair to me. I actually want more. I want to be further ahead. I want bigger things. I want to get paid more. And we learn that that's not okay energy. We don't know how to deal with it, and we squeeze it. On the other side, it is what I actually do want, and wanting things makes me vulnerable. And so my tolerance for vulnerability, to actually be seen, not just for my brain, but for my heart, for my passion, for how much I care, for my soft side. That's a vulnerability piece, right? But it's the superpower that also lets us receive. Because if I cannot say I even want something, this is where people will work and work and work and go, I don't do it for the thanks. And then they're like, how come I never get complimented or acknowledged, or I still not making the money? Our energy is, I don't need that. Right? So second chakra is a massive area of growth for everyone. And of course, if it feels too dangerous to ever be vulnerable, Because in your family, it was valued to be really smart and really efficient and effective, but not to be needy or emotional. You will show up stiff on camera. You won't want to show all of yourself, right? You'll want to be the expert way back here. And that fear of why am I afraid on camera, you'll just have to compartmentalize that and not feel it instead of dealing with it, right? But it's also where all self-sabotage takes place when we self-sabotage in grand fashion. So all grand self-sabotage is second chakra, and it has in its roots anger. And so second chakra is a massive superpower because it's passion, it's drive, it's this is what I want, but it's also the place that people are most confused about and need to work on the most. Because if we can't have our anger, and I don't mean being more angry and punching people in the face, we actually use tapping in the same way to move some of the things we're outraged about. But when we do that, instead of fear stopping us and saying, this is when you know you have a blocked second chakra. If you think of something that really gets you mad, that you really want and you want to go for, you want to ask for, but you can't, what you'll say is, it's not even worth it to get mad anymore, to try anymore. So I'm not, that's a depressive energy saying I really can't use that energy. So for women, we're left with these choices, and men too, right? I'm left with these choices, which I either give up, or I accommodate, or I reduce what I want based on what I think I can get. And so it's at second chakra where we make these negotiations, right? Like, I'm not going to want that because it's not going to be possible. And if I get pushback, I'm going to have to accommodate that because I cannot use my power to say, no, that's not okay with me, or, hey, I would like more. And part of that desire, I know you know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? One of the more mature adult needs is the need for esteem, right? If there is a real need in you to say, I want people to think I'm awesome. And if I'm not allowed, I'm terrified of that showing on camera, then I am going to be stiff and controlled. And to know that that is actually part of our drive. We want to do and we want to give, and we also want to be seen and valued. This is all part of real second chakra drive. And I always say to people, you're supposed to want for people to be like, wow, you moved me, and not hide that passion, not hide that feeling. But we often have just so much program that says, I'm not allowed to ask for that, or that would make me vulnerable if I asked for that. So I'm just more comfortable being more type A, right? And teaching in a more rigid or more like controlled fashion. So second chakra, huge superpower. It also gives us that bigger sort of, people who have a lot of leadership energy, they will be the first ones to tell you, oh yeah, I can go into battle. Like, I get pissed, I get angry, I go into battle with people. It's because your leadership energy is driven by that second chakra passion. And it's the same thing, whether you have trouble with anger or you're like, Margaret, I'm angry all the time. It's the same prescription. It's knowing how to use a technique like tapping is the one I use to move that anger so that you can be in a better energy of leadership, right? We can't be in retaliatory anger all the time. So it's kind of the gamut. It's like, I never do anger, I do anger all the time. And then somewhere in the middle, either way, it's learning what the energy of that second chakra is, how to move it, how to honor it, so that I can say, okay, I'm not going to rip your head off anymore. And now, but I still know what I want. And I can come into a meeting with what I call leadership energy, where I can speak really clearly about my passion, about how upset I am, maybe how hurt I am, or about what I really, really want, in a way that is compelling, in a way that is certain and solid.
And how do we, so a question came up for me as you were sharing all that, because we're faced so often with the need to compromise. Mm-hmm. How do I reconcile, or how do we reconcile compromising with not depressing ourselves? In other words, how does that piece work? It's a fine line there, because sometimes compromise is called for, and other times it takes the form of I'm making less of me. How do we work with that?
It's like you were setting me up for the next thing I was going to say. So the third superpower.
Okay. I did not know that, by the way.
Yes. Well, and this is how it builds, right? And each power is each of these chakra energies is a more advanced level of consciousness, level of power as we grow, right? So we don't have children running around, you can see that they want to be a tyrant sometimes, but they're not mature enough yet, right? To be a leader, right? They would just be punching everyone in the face. If you're a good little 2-year-old, right? It's okay to slap somebody when you're 2 and then get in trouble. So when we come to the third chakra, this is your action, your confidence center. But as a superpower, it really is where we see this win-win leadership energy emerge. And so if you think about the second chakra, which is kind of raw, it's like, these are all the things I want. These are all the angers that I have, the frustrations, I want to kill this person and they're subjugating me and they're making me be small. We have all of that roiling sort of reactionary anger. And when we can have the leadership energy at the third chakra, where we come into every difficult conversation, every boundary setting, every compromise, every partnership conversation, when we can come into that with this more evolved conscious leadership energy, but we can't muscle there. And so for me, this is where what I call it the counterintuitive tirade, or tapping and ranting. And it's a way of using tapping just for you first, to voice everything that you feel in the most unfiltered way. I always say to women, get in your car, drive behind the grocery store, like no one can be traumatized. And you honestly use the tapping technique in a way that a lot of people who are very famous for tapping never would, which is you are going to like F-bomb your way through it. It's totally ranting. It's like, fuck you. How can you do that to me? How dare you? You're screwing me. And it could be your teenage daughter, right? It could be your partner. You're not hurting anyone when you're moving this uprising, natural, retaliatory energy. You're actually doing something very involved and conscious, which is moving it, hearing it, listening to it, but releasing some of it so that you can just be left with the certainty. Because what you will learn, and people will be like, just tell me what's going to happen. I don't want to do it. But what you will learn is you will hear a bunch of things come out of your own mouth. And you're going to say, wow, it's not just my truth that I'm angry. I just really heard how hurt I am. Like, I'm really upset about this. And no one even knows that. That's an example of what can happen, right? Or, wow, I just heard how bad I want this. Like, I just heard myself say how frustrated I am. And now I'm realizing I don't just want this a little. Like, so there's always a shift in energy. It's like, now what am I willing to do? But the difference is, Ridgely, is that even the most meek person who's always played small is now filled with a different energy, because rage becomes outrage, becomes courage. I don't know if you ever noticed, rage is in all three of those words, right?
Oh my God, that is so cool.
Becomes outrage, right? We get outraged for other people all the time. And what we say to them is like, why aren't you getting mad? Or we call it mama bear energy for women, right? Like, oh, I'll advocate because I am outraged for you. And that turns into courage. And suddenly we're ready to come into a conversation and speak a fuller truth. And so difficult conversations change, because now the anger is exhausted. It doesn't mean now you're going to give in. It means I am so much more solid and clear and certain. And you can come into a conversation and say, okay, right, this is what I want. This is honestly something that you don't know, but I'm going to tell you, this is actually, I have some history around this, I realized, or I'm more hurt than I realized. And this is what I want. And I'm clear it's what I want. And now I'm having an honest conversation, more honest and authentic than smiling along and gritting my teeth and being like, I am so pissed right now, or attacking and fire hosing somebody. It's so much more honest, and something dramatically shifts in your energy. Because I've done this with thousands of people, and they've been like, Margaret, my boss always gaslights me. My teenager always fights me. My people, they run over me, they push my boundaries. And in this conversation, they were like, okay. Because there's such a certainty in you. Like, people won't push. It's fascinating. They're like, wow, I'm really hearing you. It elevates the conversation when you come from this. It's almost like this undefended, I'm just telling you where I'm at. And it's so solid and real. And that's why it's win-win leadership energy. So your intention is a win-win. Even if this is someone that you should literally never talk to again. Right? It's like, my win-win sometimes is, we're going to have to agree to disagree. And this isn't the kind of relationship I want to have with someone. So bye. Like, my no to you is a yes to me. And maybe in this lifetime, it will never feel like a win-win to you, but it is my intention. Because, I always, often realize like, well, this toxic relationship is not really good for them either. Right? So sometimes the win-win leaves another person upset, but I promise you, you will feel solid, because we've all scorched the earth, right? We've all said, I so can't deal with this person, you're dead to me. And then we never talk to him again. But we never feel good about it, right? Or we blow up with someone and we still just don't, it doesn't feel as good as when we come into it with this solid, hey, my intention was win-win. I really spoke my truth, not just the truth of my wounds or my anger, but my actual truth. I did this so many times raising a teenager, where I would say, because at certain ages, I don't know if you're familiar with this originally, at certain ages, teenagers will sort of attack you, right? Because they're sort of like a child throwing a tantrum, and they forgot that they are like 2 inches taller than you, right? And so I could get into saying like, hey, don't talk to me that way. And you could be now arguing, right? And what I would do instead is really work on my own anger and my own rage and be like, how dare you? I do everything for you. And then I'd be like, oh, I'm hearing it, right? I'm hearing my own parts, right? My parents never did this much. Oh, I'm kind of hearing that too. So I could really honor my own stuff in dealing with her. And when we would have to have these hard conversations, I would say, actually, I would be non-defensive. I'm not in battle. I'm just telling you that it really hurts. I don't like it and it hurts. And I don't have anyone in my life that treats me that way. And I'm asking you to come into a new relationship with me because you're becoming an adult. And that's weird. And that's hard. And that's different. And she was like, she had nowhere to, right? There was no battle in her because there was no battle in me, right? And so it got to a point where I would say, and I tell parents this all the time, where all you have to do is say, we need to sit down and have a real conversation. And they'll be like, I'll change, I'm fine. Because what they don't want is that real, because honestly, those are the consequences were more painful than me arguing, was to say, it actually really hurts my feelings. Like, I'm a person, it hurts. That was a horrible consequence for her, right? She was like, I'm going to make changes. I'm going to make changes. And so this is the way that we learn how to have hard conversations. And so many of my friends who run multi-million-dollar businesses will say to me, I have trouble with the leadership piece. I'm a creative, I'm a quick start, I'm this, I'm that, but I have to manage people and have hard conversations, and they avoid. Right. And so moving our own stuff and our own reaction turns us into this evolved superhero that can be really honest in this moment and uncompromising if we need to be, because we're so certain. Certainty is not of the mind, right? Certainty is not of the mind. People will argue and be like, I know stuff. And I can prove it to you why certainty is not of the mind. Certainty is a lower chakra thing. It's like, I feel this reality and it's true, and I have a level of certainty about it. It doesn't mean that I won't listen. and I won't compromise. I'm actually in a pretty non-defended state. But certainty is not of the mind, because the mind can be gaslit, right? We've all felt something to be very true, to have someone in our life like hammer us, debate us, hound us, overtalk us, and relentlessly convince us until we start to go, what? I don't know, maybe you are right, right? I mean, this is why people join religious cults. It's like, this can be tricked. This can be gaslit. Your lower chakras, when you get it and you have felt it and you have heard how you really feel about it and the impact on you, that is certainty, right? And if we could show up even with twice as much real, authentic certainty in our lives, right? Doesn't mean we think we're perfect. And actually, as we get to the fourth superpower, that's what we start to talk about. It's true undefended self. It's like the most powerful radiant superpower. That's when we become someone, we walk in the room and people are like, wow, that there's something about that person's energy that is just compelling, and I want to be around them. I want to follow them. I want to listen to them. And because that's when that charisma and that just something different comes in the field. And as I do, I call it a radiant quality at the fourth superpower. So the third superpower really is, it's more practical, right? It's more everyday. It's in our actions. It's in our words. And when it comes to do with action, my actions are leadership actions. Right? They're leading towards my goal. I am leading forward, or am I doing, if I really get honest, is the majority of my actions, really boiling that down, are the majority of the things I'm doing designed to keep me safe? And that can really be like a 2x4 to the head for a lot of people, right? It's like, wow, Margaret, even my 3 PhDs, that was me trying to stay safe. Because I was always told I wasn't smart. I'm trying to prove that I'm beyond reproach, right? Because if I'm not, I feel that stress response happening. So third chakra is very, very practical. So you have sort of like this more adult energy, unless we're just doing and doing and doing, right? And so you see that procrastination at the third chakra. You can be procrastinating, but very busy.
No kidding, right? I love that. Rage leads to outrage, leads to courage. And also I'm reminded that courage, the word, is made up of cœur, age, and cœur is heart in French. So courage is the age of the heart. So somehow the rage to the outrage to the courage to the age of the heart kind of all blends in there in a fabulous way. I just love that. And the other thing you said that I've never heard that said this way, because you're so fabulous and I know that part, but I really love this, is my no to you may be a yes to me. I love that. That is that's one of those writer downer, need to ponder, noodle on for a little while. And really almost, I feel like that's one of those things you want to embrace and internalize. My no to you may be a yes to me.
Yeah.
Very empowering. That's really empowering. I love that.
Yeah. And thank you. And I don't think I invented that, but it's let all my no's be a yes to me. Every no in my life is a yes to me. So when I say no to something, anything, it's actually a yes to me. You know, that you could talk about that in like food choices, right? You could talk about that in relationship choices. It's like anywhere, or even when we become an entrepreneur, now there's too many opportunities, right? And so every no that I put into a universe has the energy of a yes to me, right? And so I love that on many, many different levels. It's like really like how you want to have this energetic vibe, because we sometimes no energy matters and we feel weird when we're saying no about things or no to people. It's like, am I going from limitation? And we start to gaslight ourselves, right? Am I being limited? Am I being selfish? And having that yes to me. That third chakra superpower honors the sacred self. Like, I also matter. And that is an affirmation that I ask women to say in exactly that way. I also matter. Like what I want matters. Who I am and how I feel also matters, because we're so used to having everyone else. It's like we're so willing to make sure that everyone else feels good, right? And that I'm coming like, eighth on the list. So as we get to the fourth chakra, yes, the heart chakra, we come to this big radiant energy, because the mind is just a robot until it's connected to the fourth chakra. So let's talk the difference between a robot, and we've seen all the dystopic movies where the robots take over and they realize, let's get rid of these humans, right? And so the mind is simply a microprocessor, right? It is not supposed to be in charge of the whole system. It's not supposed to run our life. It's really the heart that sits in the middle, right? It's 3 up and 3 lower. The heart sits in the middle. The heart is wisdom. And so when the heart or mind are open together, our heart has wisdom in it. And that means we look at our lower 3 chakras and we say, and so when the heart is open and the mind is open, third eye, the heart beholds, right? So when you think about someone you love, a grandchild, a niece, a nephew, a child, and you look at them and you just, for a moment, you just behold them with love, right? You're just like, even if I say this, they'll be like, oh, you, but we see with this eyes of love, and we see everything, right? And we see their future, we see their past, we see their potential, right? We see their failings and we're like, ah. So that's what the heart does. So when we look at ourselves, we look at our lower chakras and we look at where we are honestly afraid. We go, that's okay. It's okay, I get it. Of course, I'm going to be afraid, even while sometimes I'm very courageous. When we look at our second chakra, which is messy and reactionary and selfish, it doesn't have upper consciousness. It's like, I want this, I want that, I'm crabby now, I'm mad, I want to kill somebody. We look at our own second chakra and don't say, I'm a horrible monster, because I can see that I am selfish at times. We say, of course, I have all of those natural feelings. Of course, I get triggered. Of course, I get sad. Of course, I get needy. It doesn't make me a monster. It's part of my my dynamic self. And when we look at our third chakra in the way that we take action and make mistakes publicly, honestly, the times that we do mess up, it's like, hey, it's all in context. And so we look at ourselves through the eyes of love. When the heart is closed, we just have the mind, which means scrutiny. I want you to compare the words scrutinize versus behold, and just feel the energy in your body when you behold something versus scrutinize it. And when the heart and mind are not working together, because the heart chakra has learned, oh, I can be loving to other people, but I'm not safe unless I'm perfect, or I'm perfectly strong, or perfectly in control, or perfectly giving. Then I look at myself and I scrutinize every mistake that I'm making. And so I often say to people, what's more dangerous? Someone who comes at you angrily and says, I'm going to punch you in the face, and then they punch you in the face, or a maniacal genius who pretends to be your best friend, who whispers in your ear for 40, 50, 60 years, saying, are you sure you want to do that though? Remember the last time when you really screwed up? Are you sure you're ready to step out of your comfort zone? I mean, you're kind of not good enough. I mean, think about how selfish you are secretly, and you're really putting yourself out there as this amazing person. Are you really sure you did that good? I know people complimented you, but remember when you forgot to say all those things and then you screwed up and everyone saw it? And so which one's more dangerous? Because the closed heart chakra, as it's the most powerful chakra, with your mind that remembers every fucking thing you've ever done, that is a maniacal genius that will supply you with data to prove that you're not good enough yet. And so the heart chakra is super powerful, and it has the powerful dark side of what I call false wisdom, which is there is no context. I'm telling you, this is how you did. And I'm not actually seeing the full context, right? I'm only scrutinizing the mistakes that you made. And this is where I see this come up a lot with entrepreneurs. They will have
time, right? People just do this. We that tendency to just beat yourself up or beat the other person up because you're trying to make yourself feel better on some kooky level.
Yeah.
Ouch.
And so it's often what's going on inside of us is so intolerable that we try not to be in our hearts. Because if we went in there, we would feel grief, right? Hard on ourselves all the time creates uncried tears of grief in the heart chakra. And so, where I see this a lot with entrepreneurs is they'll say like, oh, people don't feel me, they don't blah, blah, blah. And I will say, if you really had to go all the way down in your body and feel what there was to feel, what would you guess you might have to feel? And 100% of the time they go, sadness. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good reason to not be in your feelings, right? And to be a little bit more stiff. I mean, it's often fear or anger or sadness. It's all of those painful emotions. And so, but the big thing that I see happens with entrepreneurs when they get stuck and they're confused is that they have a goal trauma. And so a goal trauma is a particular thing. And it's a thing. It's when I had a past thing that I really believed in. And I really went for it. And I really tried. And I even sacrificed. And I put myself out on a limb. And maybe even people in my life paid the price. And it all crashed and burned. It all crashed. And I lost so much. And from that day, this is why I call it a goal trauma. Because it's not just a past event that happened. If you really get honest, you'll say, since that day, I trust myself less. I believe in myself less. I allow myself less joy, less kindness, because I'm always looking back at that past event. Now it's just like, I call it like the looming dark cloud. And see, the maniacal genius gets a hold of that. And it's like, I'm going to hold this dark cloud over you. And the heart is closed. And so, people say like, she had a lot of ideas, but her heart's never in it. Right? Why would my heart be in it if I am constantly worried that I'm going to fail again and be disappointed again? And so the heart will be filled with the terror of disappointment instead of the expansion of joy. Right. So this is a huge evolved superpower when the heart is open. And by the way, like I just did, I've done like a series of master classes, and I'm actually going to give you guys total access to that for free on first chakra superpower, opening it up, second, third, and fourth. I'm going to be honest. The first three were like an hour-long class. First chakra, second chakra, third chakra. Fourth chakra, I did 3 hours originally. Because maniacal geniuses are hard to, they resist change. So working on the fourth chakra takes somebody who knows what they're doing, right? And this is why tons of people in personal growth, it's like their biggest blind spot, right? And so I actually, the free class, if you want to, I'm going to give you guys access to this whole series. It's 3 hours long, because the work that we do there is intense, and it takes a lot of work to actually start to open our own hearts to ourselves. But the payoff is this bigger radiant energy, and it's a ripple effect energy. Because here's the thing, if you can look down the barrel of your own biggest fears and you're thinking about your flaws, the things about yourself that you hate, and you can love and accept yourself with all of those flaws, your gifts and your flaws, and be like, that what the heart chakra says is, hey, I can show up and be like, I am awesome. I am not saying I'm perfect, totally not perfect. I have a lot of flaws, but I am good at this. When you can look at yourself that way, your field shifts on the planet. And when people step in to speaking with you, they will feel something. And they won't know what it is, but they'll be like, I just feel weirdly safe with you. Or they'll say, you just feel so real and so authentic. And that's because A, you're not hiding anything. When you've done heart chakra work, you really are this undefended, like you're not hiding anything anymore. You're like, ask me anything. And they don't sense judgment and scrutiny in the field. They won't know what that is, but they'll feel safer because you're actually not judging them. And so it's a world changing, community changing, family changing, business changing, radiant energy that ripples out and affects everybody. And everyone listening to this, you are a leader. And leaders carry a big charge, a big field. It's different than someone who is a worker bee, right? And it's like, I don't mean that in any negative way. It's a different energetic wiring. When you have leadership energy, your field affects people in your family, in your community, in your company, your customers. And so to do that heart chakra work and know I'm going to be carrying a more radiant, energetic field, this win-win, joyful energy, I will have actually renewable energy because I always return to joy. I don't return to beating myself up. And that will affect and inspire people around me. And I love that, right? Like, why don't we get to have that?
No, and how powerful and how worthwhile to do the work of understanding that and embracing that and making that part of our ongoing reality. I know in Buddhism, there's a saying that says the hardest thing that we will ever do is to open that heavy, creaking, groaning door that is our own life and take a look.
Wow. Yes.
Like staring down the barrel, as you call it. Wow.
Yeah. And as an engineer, it's like, I've read all the books, all the consciousness, all the things, all the things you want to strive for. But my gift is to make it, this is where the rubber hits the road. So what I bring to it and what I'll give you guys access to in these classes is not just the concept, but the hard hitting work. And I do use tapping. We use a lot of visualization. We use a lot of tapping. We go really deep, really fast, and a lot of emotion gets moved, but that's actually making it real. People feel different after they do the work. They feel different the next day. And so that's been what's the funnest part for me is like engineers are like, it has to work and it has to work repeatably. It has to have measurable freaking results. Right. Or just read another book, right? And so this is really activating work that is transforming us to open up our power. Right? It's not just to feel a little bit better or to heal something. It's about your power. So that, my series is called Unblock Your Superpowers. That I'm going to give you guys free access to.
And guys, as always, hit the button right below this. Go check this out, this incredible gift from Margaret for all of us. I'm super excited to dive into it. And I've known you forever. I'm like, wait, hold on. There's some stuff in there that maybe I wasn't paying attention to. I think I need to get in there and really check it out. And how long does it take somebody to start making significant advancements once they start doing this work?
So I'm going to be really honest, right? Because of course it kind of depends. But if you have a tremendous amount of trauma at your first chakra, no matter what you're saying you want to accomplish, when you say, well, yeah, I mean, I've been invisible my whole life, or I'm terrified of being seen, or, I was traumatized by my family or a religious cult, or, there's different ways that people have been group traumatized. So I'm actually afraid of people. That means that you have a longer journey, because the fear is actually the most active thing. And that takes time. We don't just like rip off a Band-Aid, right? It takes time to rewire the nervous system from a constantly running for safety to run for joy and empowerment, right? And so if you fall in that category, like, it's not impossible. This is not hard work. And it is my passion, because so many people will say, I've spent years doing all sorts of stuff and it didn't make a difference. This work really changes things. If you're someone who's like, no, I've been pretty solid, but this is the tweak I need. That's something that can be, like this is a series of 4 classes. We've had people have amazing breakthroughs just from that. It's not it's not an overnight one fix wonder, because we do want to work through the chakras. And then it turns into, over time, how do I keep allowing my behaviors to change, right? Because it's one thing to tap and get ready to have a hard conversation. I still have to now start to have these hard conversations. So there's also the real life. Like I see people taking a step in, they do it. They're like, I had the hardest conversation and it went really well, but I'll still have some feelings about that afterward, right? So there's sometimes this residual amount of work. But I've seen, I never want to say this is like an instant miracle, but I've seen people have major results from working 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they're transformed. And then I've seen a lot of people go, this is great. And I've realized I am an iceberg. And there's a lot more for me to do under the surface, because honestly, they'll say, Margaret, I want more. I want more joy. I'm doing a lot. I'm proving a lot. I don't feel joy. I don't know who I am. So there's, it kind of depends on what you want, right? So what you will get access to is you can take a series of 4 chakra assessments to assess. It's a video assessment. I walk you through 10 questions to assess first chakra, then second chakra, then third chakra. It's a lot of content if you want to consume it. There's also a superhero quiz. And it is made for women coaches. So they're women master archetypal energies, but it's really, are you Captain Marvel? Are you Shuri, the genius of Wakanda? Or are you Wanda, the Scarlet Witch? And it's the 4 big master archetypal leadership energies. And they're women because it's for women coaches. But what it tells you is what your chakra dominance is. Right? Because we're all wired with different leadership energies. And then I have a video where I explain that, but on the same
But I can take it too, right? I can still take it anyway and see.
Still take it.
Okay,
and then
I want
what
to.
you just want to do is you could translate it into man speak about, what would be the male version of the Captain Marvel, but the description is going to hit you the same. It doesn't matter, right? Because I will be describing in the video, this is the thing you want more than anything in the world. This is your most terrifying moment. And this is what you need to lean into to live your passion in a bigger way, right? So the video is very rich. And then there's these 4 actual live, working, sobbing, tapping calls where you see a group of, hundreds of people doing that with me. I think I did it live on Facebook because we were relaunching the book in paperback. So I did a whole series and we'll give you access to those.
Well, that is so amazing. Thank you so much, Margaret, on behalf of the entire Groove community. Wow, this is so super cool. I'm like sitting here kind of bubbling from inside going like, woo, I love this stuff. It is like so awesome. And the fact that we get to put it out there into the world to our right now 600,000 members, growing very quickly, and help those people who are stuck to get unstuck, help those people who want to get to the next level to go there. And perhaps the most juicy for me is to just feel more joy. The world needs more joy. And I want to just say thank you on behalf of our entire community for giving us access to that and making it possible for so many people to just go from being a groovester to a groove star and shine a little bit with that joy. Margaret Lynch, Rainier, thank you so very, very much for your gift to all of us. We deeply appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.